Perhaps some people will not like hearing this, but the only way you're going to remove the hundreds of thousands of people, and maybe throughout our nation, millions of people we're talking about, and help make our cities clean, safe, and beautiful again, is open up large parcels of inexpensive land in the outer reaches of the cities, bring medical professionals, including doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, drug rehab specialists, build permanent bathrooms and other facilities, make them good, make them hard, but build them fast, and create thousands and thousands of high-quality tents, which can be done in one day.
High-quality tents. That was former President Donald Trump weirdly talking about his plan to end homelessness by actually not ending homelessness. Now, if you think that was from earlier, from when he was actually president, no. Now, I say that because he brought this up and said almost the same thing back in 2019. He had a plan. But, okay, now he's talking about this probably because he's getting ready to announce that he's running for president again for 2024. But let's be clear about the policy, because I think that's most important here. Rounding up unhoused people and basically taking them out of the city and sticking them in a giant camp, that's not a good thing. And I know some of you might be like, well, why? Well, because it's a concentration camp. He just described concentration camps for the poor. Now, remember, members of the unhoused community are not only people who have been gentrified because of rising home prices outside the city. They're also people that have been dealing with mental illness, PTSD, drug addiction, people who are just one paycheck away from economic disaster, and then said economic disaster happened to them. And now they're poor, and now they're unhoused. And look, you also have members of the LGBTQIA plus community who have been kicked out of their homes, youth. And so there's a lot of different terrible reasons why people are unhoused. So on what Trump wants to do with them, picking them up and moving them out of the city by force, by the way, is not going to help them. It's not going to solve the problem. It's a concentration camp. But what it will do is something that a lot of rich people, let's be honest, a lot of wealthy donors, and even members of the middle class, right? They just want to get homeless people unhoused out of their sight. Now, for some, maybe it's a reminder of how precarious their position is and how close they could be to becoming unhoused themselves. Or it just could be a cruelty thing where they think, well, those people, obviously, they're bad people, because if they were good people, they would be wealthy like me. It's that weirdo kind of Calvinistic approach that we've seen in our society for a very, very long time. Well, if you're a good person, then obviously you were rewarded with riches from heaven. But if you were a bad person, then you were punished with poverty. And that is why we should not help them. But again, they don't want to see it regardless of their reasons. They don't want to know homeless people or the unhoused are there. They just want them gone. And look, I'll be honest, there's good reason to not want to have camps of unhoused people everywhere, obviously. In those communities, unfortunately, there is a lot of crime. There is sexual assault in these camps that happen to the people in. By the way, I'm talking about crime to the people inside the camps who barely have anything that still get their possessions stolen. And that's, by the way, if they're not seized and destroyed by police. And of course, there's also drug use. There are people that have to end up defecating in the streets. Now, I want to solve the problem. I don't want to just move the problem. I want to solve the problem. Physically moving them to another place doesn't do that. But what it does is that it just takes these people and gets them out of the eyes of everyone else, so they no longer have to see the problem. No, I think we should actually solve the problems. I think we should be making housing more affordable. I think we should have free healthcare. We should have free mental health care. We should have programs that help with addiction. We should have education that's free, getting people into jobs, having safe and reliable public transportation so people don't have to rely on vehicles, things like that. Now, a lot of that stuff sounds difficult and expensive. Oh, can't do that. Can't do that. How expensive do you think keeping the status quo is? Which, again, having to clear out these camps, paying law enforcement to do it, putting people in jail, putting people in prison, and not to mention the Trump plan of just forcibly picking them up and sticking them in another place. That's also going to be more expensive. So, no, we actually have to do a long-term investment in all these different things to not only, help people who are unhoused, but even better, to prevent people from being unhoused in the first place. I know, shocking, right? But what we have now are, again, this makes me think back to an episode of Star Trek, right? Deep Space Nine back in 1995. Where they created these sanctuary districts. That's what they were called. And basically, they would stick the poor and unhoused and unemployed in these giant camps away from people and just ignore them. And that's it. If you don't have a job, if you don't have a home, you get stuck in that camp. That was an entire episode. A two-part, series of episodes in 1995 that had this very idea. Look, maybe that's where Trump got it from. But instead of seeing a caution as a cautionary tale against that, he looks at it and says, "Oh, you know what? Let me take some notes. This is a great idea. Sanctuary districts, all right." Now, to give you some background on an episode, one of the exchanges between the two characters, Cisco and Bashir, really summed up some of the reasons why this is happening. When dealing with somebody that had mental illness, for example, Bashir, who's a doctor, said, well, look, they could cure that man now today if they gave a damn. To which Cisco replies, it's not that they don't give a damn, they've just given up. The social problems they face seem too enormous to deal with. To which the doctor replies, that's even worse. Causing people to suffer because you hate them is terrible, but causing people to suffer because you have forgotten how to care, that's really hard to understand. And look, there's a lot of people who not only have forgotten how to care in this society, in this country, but there are also people that could choose to care, but don't. And I think it's very, very clear that a lot of members of the right wing, but also, by the way, people who are Democrats, because I remember years ago talking about a Hawaii Democratic congressman who would go out with a sledgehammer and smash homeless people's shopping carts filled with their possessions. And so this is a problem among people who have means. And again, it's because they do not want to see homeless people around. It's bad for our elections. It's bad for our public image. It's bad for us. Well, why not actually solve the problem? Oh, because it costs too much money. And we don't actually care about these people. And so, yes, it is right wing. It is Trump, but it is also a lot of people in means that just at this point have lost their empathy, their humanity, and don't give a damn about unhoused people.